introduction, and I think I was actually nervous, hearing from very senior gentlemen, especially Shankar and all, to see how I go about this. But then, so I somehow got the courage, and I want to present this. And also a little context is, like Gaurav said, I spent about 2 decades in a company. It's all about technology, Infosys Limited. And then last few years, I'm in a completely different world. Now, at the end of 20 years, I felt that, I knew a lot of IT, because all the while, right from Java development to, building applications and, into the leadership roles, I felt that, I knew a lot of IT. But then when I joined this, when we started this cloud and data center company, I realized that, what I knew is only 50%. Because, I finished the job when the application is going into the UAT. And when we started this particular organization, the game actually starts from UAT, because it's getting into the production. Then we are talking about infrastructure, servers, VMs, etc., etc. And then, in the last couple of years, I started picking up, trying to understand the cybersecurity attacks, ransomware attacks, because all the while, in the earlier part of life, 20 years, all the cybersecurity, ransomware attack is just a newspaper item for me, right? Now I'm actually living through that. So now I'm realizing that within the infrastructure space, cybersecurity itself is huge. So the reason I'm telling you all this is there's a lot to learn. I'm still learning. And whatever I learned in the last couple of years, I will try to humbly present here. While I was still thinking how do I go about it after hearing from industry veterans. So what I'll do in the next 25 minutes is I'll try to cover it in 3 chapters. Right? One, let me show you some data. Very industry-specific data, how much data that we are dealing with today, and what is the impact of an attack, a cybersecurity attack, and just an industry data, and then you'll realize that while I think the panel was saying, very interestingly, it is a very boring topic, but unfortunately, it is very, very important and very, very critical for any enterprise, any business enterprise, or even an IT vendor or a data center. And coming from data center company, I know, every day in, day out, I want to go to the bed without any, attack or any vulnerabilities that, my customer is reporting at the end of the day, right? So with that, let me start showing some data. And then the second, I'll also quickly introduce, Pi Data Center, where I'm working as a Chief Operating Officer. And I want to quickly cover in terms of, how we are trying to run this organization differently for the customer needs. And also, as a third chapter, I'll talk about what are the practices, again, all in terms of technology, process, and people, what we are doing at Pi Data Centers to help our existing customers and also the prospective customers, right? Let me see if I get this, yeah. So, like I said, the first chapter covers, a series of slides, quick slides, to give you a flavor of, what we are dealing with. 67 zettabytes by 2020 is what we are talking about. And again, reasons are pretty obvious. We are talking about 5G. There's a lot of uproar about 5G. We have to see what this is really about. IoT has been, I think, there. In fact, in our own data center, we have 25,000 sensors connected in our data center, which is constantly pumping data to our dashboard. So I can imagine, how much this, mechanical IoT devices is pumping digital data. And then, of course, AI and ML, right? Again, Shankar talked about, all earlier speakers talked about AI has been buzzword. I think there are a lot of organizations, a lot of startups, doing AI. And I'll tell you, AI, my first encounter of AI, I was in the previous organization in Shanghai, and we were asked to build an application for Coke. And that's the first time that we realized that we are actually building a AI. And what it means is the Coca-Cola company has installed this vending machines throughout China. And apparently, every 10 meters there is a vending machine. I'm still hard to believe that every 10 meters there is a vending machine in China. It's already a huge country. And what we were tasked to do is they wanted us to build an algorithm or a software which identifies a non-Coke product in that vending machine, right? So all that we had to do is we had to take pictures of this, hundreds SKUs of Coca-Cola, thousands of pictures, right? And teach the system, right, which is we call as machine learning, teach the systems to identify which is not a Coke product, right? I'm trying to give you this example is to kind of emphasize the fact that when we are dealing with AI, your CPUs would not suffice. You need GPUs. I don't know what will come tomorrow. There's a lot of data and a lot of computing requires, and hence the data is only going to become more and more, right? And of course, streaming, and I'm sure you are seeing these players like Akamai, CloudFront, etc. There are a lot of CDN players emerging, becoming popular, and a lot of streaming across is happening across industry, Hotstar, etc. In fact, when I used to watch cricket, 10 years back, when we are not watching on TV, you used to see these frames of, on a website because you're still watching the telecast from a remote server. But today, if you see on a Hotstar, the streaming is absolutely seamless because thanks to CDN, right? So the streaming, all this, of course, digital transformation, etc. So one thing is very, very clear. Data is going to go increase only, right? And as we speak, I'm sure a lot of us actually are creating data in their WhatsApp messages and other messages, right? So that's the flavor of how much data we are dealing with. Now I think this is one very important slide, and again coming from a data center company today, and I think thanks to Shankar, then he emphasized the fact that the data in cloud is more secure than on-premise, right? I think he kind of set the platform to me. And I think this is on that context I am talking about this. Today, if you see this little graph from one of the popular research companies, only 25% of the data is actually captured in the data center, right? The reason I'm saying that, so what? I mean, someone can ask a question, so what? Out of 85 zettabytes, there's only 21, in the next couple of years, 21%, 25%, right? 21 zettabytes. 25% of the data is actually sitting in data centers on cloud companies, but the remaining 75% data is still sitting on-premise. So this is the opportunity for the hackers, and this is an area that all of us need to focus, because the moment, and I'll talk about why I'm saying that, and again emphasize a little bit more on what Shankar talked about, why we believe the data is more secure in a data center or a cloud company versus sitting on-premise, right? So this is an opportunity, this is a threat for all of us. The 75% of the data that's sitting outside of a data center or a cloud is really a problem area from a cybersecurity paradigm, right? So this is just a simulation of how, if I have to depict a cybersecurity attack, cyber attacks, going live, right? It's just a simulation of a picture. So as we speak, I mean, you can figure out the countries where it is all coming from. But this is how it is happening. Every second, every sub-second that we are talking about, there is an attack that is happening on the data. And based on the previous slide, the probability of these attacks are happening is more on a data that is sitting not in a data center versus the data sitting on a data center, right? Again, next few slides, just simple one-liners just to get you the magnitude of the problem that we are talking about. WannaCry spread about 150 countries, right? 200K is the cost, average cost of a single attack, right? 200K is a huge money, right? When you convert it into rupees. 200K is the cost of every small attack for a company purely because of the cyber attacks, right? Cryptojacking, I don't know how many of you know the term cryptojacking? Any hands raised? I'm just taking a pause. Sure. So yeah, this is again, when this whole cryptocurrency, lot of companies, of course, in India it's still not legalized, regularized, that's why we're not probably practicing or encountering, but I think if you go to the West or if you go to the Far East, cryptocurrency is very, very popular, and there are already 250 currencies that are there. There are a lot of exchanges that are trading constantly these cryptocurrencies, and cryptojacking is nothing but, there is a intrusion of, external guy into your laptops or your servers to mine this cryptocurrency. So this is a real threat, right? I mean, because huge money is getting transacted, and then if there is a phenomenon called cryptojacking is becoming more and more prevalent, then there is a threat to your data, right? 143 million people were attacked or implemented or whatever, affected in the US from New York Times, and then many more, right? So what are the different types of attacks that we are talking about, right? Again, I'm not an expert in all of them, but then I'm sure some of the common terms that you talk about, DDoS, ransomware, phishing, malware, etc., web URL filtering. So all these different types are there, and you don't know, and where things will start coming and then where things will attack. And then we'll talk about, how we need to be prepared from different aspects, right? Again, another slide to show you what is the impact. 13 million is an average impact per company because of the cyber attacks per year. This is for across industries, but again, there's a note saying that 18 million is an average impact for a BFSI industry, right? And I think in the context of this particular forum, BFSI industry is more prone for these attacks because that's where the money and that's where the largest of the data is that is sitting, right? And when these attacks happen, obviously there's information loss which can be used for different purposes. Business gets disrupted, right? And then revenues is losing, equipments are getting damaged, and then there's, to sum it up, there is a huge reputation loss. Sometimes, at least as a data center company, we feel that if there is a cyber attack happens, we really feel for it as if something really happened in our family, something really happened to our reputation, to your character kind of a thing. That's how this, attacks are prone. Someone says, hey boss, just imagine, companies like AWS, right? They had a recent, ransomware attack, right? I mean, it can happen to anyone, and then there is a lot of noise. Every small, vernacular newspaper to probably New York Times, everyone covered it, right? Because that's a big thing, right? So that's how the reputation loss can happen to even some of the biggest companies. Any guesses? I'm just trying to make it interactive. Any guesses what could be this number? I'll click next slide and it'll come. Okay, let me click this. So I didn't actually know how to read this number. My friend actually helped me. It says $5.2 trillion impact, in the last, in this 5 years, this year to next 4 years. This could be the impact that is forecasted because of the cyber attacks. So I don't know what it means, but obviously a huge number, right? So there's an opportunity for all of us, especially the BFSI industry, especially players like us, to have platforms ready, work with partners, work with IT companies, have the processes built in, have the people trained, etc., to attack or protect this revenue leakage. It's a huge number. I'm sure so many companies can survive if this money is not lost on cyber attacks. Okay, so be prepared. I think coming to end of this first chapter, where I wanted to show you the impact of cyber attacks. I know there's a lot of literature available on the internet, but my attempt was to quickly bring out some of the summaries to just help you guys to understand what could be the potential impact. And I think setting into the next chapter is, someone, I think there's a popular story. Noah is a very popular character who built this ark, and when he's building this ark, when it was not raining, people actually laughed at him saying that, why are you building, right? But apparently, I think thousands of people survived because of this ark when something like tsunami happened in the Western Europe. And this is where I think as an organization, as a customer, as a service provider, we all need to spend, I think like I was saying, the amount of investment or the amount of money that we spend in protecting your data through technology or a process or people is very, very negligible compared to the amount of money that you actually spend to recover that data when the attack happens, right? I think this is a perfect example to talk about that. So I'll lead into the next chapter, as a PI data centers, and I think we are here, we are making a humble attempt to ensure that some of this, at least a majority of this, is protected as an industry player, right? So this is just one slide about, as an organization, PI data centers, and little background. I think 5 years back when we wanted to start this data center company in India, not many players, of course there are 8-9 players who were there running for a decade, but then we thought, how should we do differently, right? India being developing country still, infrastructure still is at, needs to be developed, unlike a Western country where power cuts are all not normal. Here pretty much everything is normal. So we thought we need to build a data center which is providing highest of the availabilities, right? As a CIO or a CEO or an IT head of a company, what would be your first criteria when you are trying to move your data from your on-premise to a cloud company or a data center, right? So obviously you want it to be available all the time for you. right? 24/7, absolutely no disruption whenever you want it, because that's the first thing you want, because you're actually trying to move out your heart of your body to a remote place, whether you call it as a cloud or data center. So the answer was obviously a tier 4 data center, and which gives you the highest availability. And today, we are the Asia's largest tier 4 data center certified by Uptime. And of course, there are few data centers that are there in the country who are also tier 4, but then we wanted to ensure that there is a premier institute in US certifying that you are really a tier 4. And what it really means to the customers is we commit 26 minutes of scheduled downtime in 365 days to make this data available for you all the time, right? So that's the first pillar, that's the first philosophy, first design principle that we wanted to go with. And right from day one, 2.5 years back when we started this data center, we went live as a tier 4 data center certified by Uptime, right? And of course, it's 100% automated. Like I said earlier, 25,000 sensors are placed. It's probably one of the decently large IoT implementation in the country, where there's a huge dashboard that actually keeps telling you what is happening in the data center on the non-IT side. Right, on the IT side, I think we're all very familiar with a lot of dashboards, etc. But on the non-IT side, it's a really mechanical device, an electrical device actually pumping you the data, whether it is the function or the sensor is working fine or not. So we've got it right. It's pretty automated. And today, in the last 2.5 years, while we say 99.995, we haven't seen any downtime. 100% we've been available. Right. Second is high performance. So then we said, what is the next thing that a CIO or a CTO would look at, right, when he's moving his data? He wants, of course, high availability, tick mark done with its tier 4. The second thing is he wants to access it faster than probably what he's trying to access it from other place. So what is the solution? Of course, from a software perspective, there are a lot of accelerators, a lot of tools that you can deploy. But as a data center company, what do you want to do, right? The answer was build a data center very close to the golden quadrilateral in Indian context, right? The reason is, if your data center is very close to the golden quadrilateral or your national highway, the chances of you getting closer to the dark fiber that is being run by the ISPs is higher, right? Today, if you look at all the 5 or 6 major ISPs in India are running their dark fiber along the golden quadrilateral. And we are about 1 kilometer away from the golden quadrilateral. And actually, you can go to our website where you will see the latency from any city to Amaravati, which is Vijayawada or the new capital of Andhra Pradesh, is less or very similar to any other combination that you would see, right? And this is fundamentally because we are very close to the golden quadrilateral. The access to the ISPs is very low, very less. And in fact, some of the ISPs actually are running their SPOC or running their content and sending their bandwidth to that regions from our data centers, right? So that was the answer. And of course, tomorrow if someone is building a data center much closer to the golden quadrilateral, probably they'll enjoy lower latency. But today, I think we are realizing that we are enjoying that uniqueness as of today. The third one is low cost, right? Again, when someone comes saying that I am a lower cost, the first question whether these guys are really qualitative players or not, right? So that's where we wanted to answer that we are very high quality player with respect to this tier 4, etc. We have invested a lot. But then how do I tell to my customer that I am a really low cost player? Not because I wanted to spoil the business environment, but because I am able to give that really low cost to the customer because of a design principle, because of a strategic decision that I have taken much before when I'm actually building this data center, right? So what we have done is, unlike the other data center players in the country, we have built our data center in a tier 2, tier 3 cities. Today we are in Amaravati. We are not in Mumbai, we are not in Delhi, we are not in Bangalore, where most of the data centers in the country are sitting. We are in Amaravati. The next one is coming up in Kochi. The third one probably will come up in New Raipur, where we have already acquired the land. So if you see the underlying strategy behind this is, we wanted to build a data center in a place where the power is abundant, the power cost is 30-40% cheaper than what you would expect in a place like Mumbai, Delhi, etc. Right? And because the land is available, because you are in a tier 2 city, you would have opportunities to build your data center with a lot of engineering or innovation that you can actually put in. Imagine, if I have to build a data center in a year's time in Mumbai, all I get is probably, I may not even get a piece of land in Mumbai, right? Can I? Probably I'll be given a high-rise building, 3-4 floors, and I have to build a data center. So imagine the amount of engineering that I can put in there versus a greenfield data center that I can build, trying to build a data center where a lot of things that I can actually, I mean, you should come and watch our data center. There's a lot of engineering went in, a lot of innovation went in, wherein I'm able to reduce my PUE factor much lower to some of the data centers that are there in the country, right? That is the reason why I'm able to offer a lower cost, not because I just want to offer the lower cost in the business for the sake of it, but these are certain design principles that we have implemented to offer the lower cost. So today probably you would not find any other data center at our scale. Our data center is in 10 acres of land, 5,000 racks capacity. You won't find this kind of large data center in the country, not in Mumbai, not in Delhi or Bangalore, etc. Right? Yes, we are taking a little bit of hit. Some of my Mumbai customers says, boss, I love your data center, but I want to be in Mumbai. We are still educating them. I still don't see a reason why someone has to be in a particular metro, but we are educating them. But we strongly believe that on a long term, I think customer would get benefited on this. The last one, I think this is the topic of the forum, and I'll talk more and more about this from a cybersecurity perspective. But I think I want to move to the third chapter with a note that one of the other criteria that we have picked up in picking up the place for our data center building is not just, of course, the tier 2 city, of course, is there, but then we got an opportunity to handpick the place where there is no recorded history of earthquakes or floods in the area where you are building the data center, right? Because cybersecurity, I think you'll see that. I think the earlier speakers also talked about it. It's a continuous journey, right? Today you can build a wonderful tool, but I think tomorrow there is a hacker. He's also working hard to break that system, right? So it's a continuous journey. But if you are building a data center in a place which is prone to natural disasters, right, like tsunamis or even, again, I'm in Mumbai, I should not talk more about this, but then your data center might be very safe in Mumbai, and your house is very safe, but you cannot even reach to the data center if 3 days of rainfall happens in Mumbai. Agree? Right? Again, no offense to Mumbai. I like Mumbai. I love Mumbai whenever I come here. But from an enterprise perspective, that's the only thing, because once you build a data center, you can't do anything, right? It's a huge capital investment. You cannot lift and shift data center to some other place. So this is one of the other strategies that we had in mind. Let's build in a data center which is cost effective, et cetera, power abundance, we talked about as a third pillar, but also build a data center in a place where, at least from your knowledge, from the recorded history, last 70, 80 years, there are no natural disasters like, floods and earthquakes, right? So that was, the strategy went behind in terms of building a very highly secure data center from a, geo-risk perspective. And obviously, because we did that, there's more responsibility on us, more pressure on us to really build a really strong, secure data center from even cybersecurity perspective, right? Which is what I will probably cover it up in the next 10 minutes. And it's already 1:15, probably another 10 minutes. So I think this is one thing that we talked about to one of the questions on the panel. I think every business is unique, and your cybersecurity strategy also has to be very, very unique. It cannot be a blanket formula. You have to identify which kind of business you are in, what is the business you are in, and where you sense more threats, and then you have to invest in the right areas, be it in terms of technology, people, or processes, right? So I have few slides, but I know I'm running, but I'll try and quickly cover and then stop at places where we are little doing differently from probably what you would typically hear in the industry, right? So again, our approach has to be, which I've been, I think, talking in the last 10 minutes, definitely technology, right? There's a continuous innovation. We have to, as a data center player and as a cloud player, we are on a constant vigil in terms of what is the right technology, what is the right platform tools to adopt in our data center, in our cloud ecosystem, for us to be able to give that right protection of data to our customers, right? Processes, there's a lot here. And again, unless you are a right process company, a lot of deviations can happen. And I think today, we focus a lot. I think today there is no certification that is not done in our data center, which is actually disqualifies us for actually taking any opportunity. So we invest a lot, on building the process, and lot of certifications, whether it is PCI DSS, HIPAA for healthcare, or all the ISO numbers, STQC, all the certifications are there, I think, which only tells the right focus that we are doing. And of course, the people, we've been saying, while that comes as a third, but I think that still holds 17% of the reason for any cyber attack in a 100% thing. So we constantly hire the right guys, train them, and this is a constant journey. We have a quiz every quarter. People have to score. Again, otherwise their email is blocked. So a lot of these practices that we are doing to ensure that every small network engineer to the CEO of the company are continuously enabled on this practices that help security, right? So these are some of the tools and technologies that we have within our cloud ecosystem and data center. I'm sure most of it is all probably familiar to all of you guys. I'll quickly run each one of them and talk about probably what specific tools, what slightly differentiation that we are doing, we believe, compared to the industry norms, right? DDoS protection. So we have got some of the industry best practices tools. Again, we do it from two forms. One, within a data center, we have a platform that protects the DDoS attacks. And we also have, for certain critical customers, for large customers, we also have DDoS protections right at a perimeter level before even it enters into our firewall, through some of these standard industry players like Akamai and other tools. So which will ensure that your DDoS is eliminated even before it enters into our data center and comes into our cloud platform, right? IDS and IPS, again, pretty standard stuff, but what we have done is we have probably invested in Palo Alto, which probably I don't think any of the data centers would invest in such a very costly tool, especially in Indian context. So we thought we have to do that, and it is our responsibility to protect the data. So Palo Alto is the firewall that we have in our ecosystem that is giving this IDS and IPS protection, both detection and then prevention, right? SEIM. So again, this is a very standard concept. We have capability, we have skills to implement and deploy any SIM standard tools that typically people would know, like IBM QRadar, etc. But I think what we also realized is, being a data center player, being a cloud player, we know exactly what goes through. Then we felt there's an opportunity for building a SIM tool on our own. So today we have built a SIM tool. I wouldn't say that it is as good as some of the industry. We'll take some more time. But today we have an SIM tool, our own proprietary tool that is sitting in our data center that protects, that continuously, analyzes the logs. We've used certain, especially for the banking industry, we have used this Wazoo algorithm to ensure that PCI DSS compliance is taken care as part of the SIM framework that we are implementing. Firewalls, again, I talked about Palo Alto. So it provides, it's a UTM-based firewall, pretty expensive with high-end features. 7800, Harsha, right? 7800 the model, right? 700, yeah. So it protects your data from threat, and you can write thousands of policies, etc. Again, you can customize the policies to the needs of your business, etc. So that your business is not interrupted. At the same time, your security is safeguarded, right? Again, both virtual and physical. We have a physical one. Again, our cloud platform is virtual as well. So VAPT testing, like I think again the panel question, it's like that game, right? Like treasure hunt. You try to avoid the traffic before you hit the data center. Then you start doing it at a firewall level. Okay, you missed somehow, some fellow sneaked in, and then you start looking at your networking level. Then you're at cloud software level. But if you keep missing all this, still there is something that we religiously follow by doing VAPT testing. When we provision every VM, we're provisioning every workload to our customer at a server level to ensure that your applications are still protected, even if there is a miss by any chance, even if you deploy some of this standard tools, right? So that's really the VAPT testing. So as part of our checklist, that when we offer infrastructure to our customers, we ensure that both vulnerability and penetration testing is done to your applications and the VMs before we hand it over to that. So some of the stronger practices. So this is one interesting thing. Probably the next 2-3 slides are slightly different than what we are doing. I think Ved Prakash talked about the encryption, and we believe that this is one thing which is very unique in the country, probably unique in the world. What we are calling is homomorphic encryption. We work with Bangalore Indian Institute of Sciences professor. Now I think probably Ved can correct me, or we can have an offline discussion, but we believe that there are industry tools that protect your data when the data is at rest, when the data is actually moving. but we believe that there are no standard tools when to protect your data vulnerabilities when the data is getting processed, right? There could be programs, there could be data that is continuously getting processed, 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. So apparently I think there were no vulnerabilities identified, but I think recently there are vulnerabilities identified when the data is getting processed, and hence there is a need for you to protect the data for such vulnerabilities. And that's what this professor has coined a term called homomorphic encryption. And we took, based on his guidance, we developed a software based on his algorithm, and we are calling it the homomorphic encryption. It is there in our data center, which can actually protect your data from all different 3 states of data: rest, transition, and processing, right? And I think from a user perspective, if I have to talk in the language that Ved talked about in terms of key, the easiest way to understand is, typically most of the encryption tools come with data and key in the cloud, right? So if I'm able to take the data from the cloud, if I have a very supercomputer, at some point I should be able to crack the key, right? I keep trying the multiple combinations. But imagine a scenario where the key is not there in the cloud, only data is there, and the key is with you, right? Now that's what really we are trying to implement here. We have implemented here. So in this phenomena, the homomorphic encryption phenomena, only the data, the encrypted data is there in the cloud, the key is with you, so which means even if the data is stolen or an attack happens, the hacker or the ransom guy cannot do anything with that data, because he can never crack that, because the key is always with the client, right? So that is, we are very excited with this phenomena, and we have a couple of clients taking this, and especially in the banking scenario, I think this is something that we really wanted to take it, because it is still in academic stage. We have done a beta version. We are not really commercializing this really, because we are still making this software, but I think this is something that we would love to implement as a POCs or a demonstrations for all of you guys, right? Again, we talked about this is again standard, this endpoint security. I'll not delve with it, but I think the point is we are taking care at every level, right? Again, like I said, depending on the nature of the business, you need to let us know, or we will recommend you where you have to invest your energies or money in the right areas to ensure that your data is protected. Yeah. Database activity monitoring. Again, what we realize is it's not about the tools, etc. in the database side. It is more of the access policies and the awareness in terms of how to handle the data and in terms of protection when it is related to the databases, right? How much? 3 minutes? 2 minutes? All right. All right. So I'll take last 2-3 minutes, and so this is again one of my last 2 interesting items: multi-factor authentication. So again, which is nothing new, but I think the beauty of what we are providing is, see, typically if you look at the latest banks, I'm sure Shankarji would agree with me, the latest banks, etc., would deploy this, have this feature of multi-factor authentication in their applications. If you go back to the old banks, probably that is still not there, but it takes a lot to really change the application to provide this multi-factor authentication. I think, but what we are doing to attack this problem, what we are trying to do is, without touching the application at an infrastructure level, we are able to provide this multi-factor authentication. So I'll leave at that statement, and definitely we can discuss online. And this has been pretty popular, and a lot of banks actually, we've implemented already, and we would love to do this to you guys. SolidWall, this is the last of my interesting items. Rest is all covered very quickly. SolidWall is another solution which is very unique, nowhere in the country, first time deployed in the country and in the industry. SolidWall, the reason we call it as SolidWall, the solution is it provides that additional protection to your storage, right? From unauthorized access, ransomware, malicious insights, and hackers. Now, you can say, you have a lot of these tools already. What is this going to do additionally, right? This provides that additional protection to your storage. It acts like a wrapper to your storage, because today, if you look at, right, in a cloud scenario, if you take a 500 VMs, all this data is stored in a storage, separate storage, a common storage. So that's been the model, right? VMs access, the virtual machines access a common storage. And I think there is a need for us to protect the vulnerabilities against there. And this particular solution, it's white hat tested, so I'll not go detail. It's white hat tested, 142 flips complaint tool. It's like a military grade tested, and we have used it for a couple of government customers. So it kind of embraces, wraps around your storage to provide that additional protection, right? So this is again very unique. You would not find it in any data center, any cloud in the country, I can tell you, because we are working in an exclusive way, and we'll be very happy. And the way, it's not very costly as well. So the way we are doing is, you get a storage with us as a vanilla option, but then you want it as a strawberry option or a, mango kind of an option. You get this, with a wrapper of solid wall, which you would want to take it for your critical data to protect your, data with little bit more security. I'll skip this. So this is my last part of it. As I said, we have a very strong process. We start from assessment audit, then we do this event classification, prioritization, recommendation. So we have a bunch of slides here. I'll not go there, but I think the idea is, while you can have a very strong set of tools, very innovative products, coming from academia or industry, you need to have a very strong process, continuously refining. Then only you will be able to protect your data. So, in the interest of time, I'll honor Gaurav's direction, so I'll skip these slides. So last part of it is, the people. You can have a very strong process, but unless your people are, not educated, not disciplined, you don't have these controls or, enablement or, motivation to follow these practices, you can still fall through cracks, right? Like for example, we had a recent ransomware attack that I talked about, where everything was great. We had probably that particular customer, we had everything in place, right? From your Akamai before even your perimeter to HIPS, 10 micros, etc. But then we still had a ransomware attack because one of the user had a very weak password, right? That was enough. So as part of the process and people enablement, these passwords, etc., had to be continuously upgraded. And luckily, because we follow this framework of prevent, monitor, and prepare. So as part of the prepare framework, we prepared. There was a backup, and we were able to quickly get up the system and running. But this is very important, and this is the structure that we follow. This is the close to 30-40 people we have in the organization who are only focusing on providing security for 100 plus customers that we have in our data center. Because, like I said, any attack is we all feel like it's a mark to your character, right? So that's how we feel in a data center. So we focus a lot. So I had few slides to talk about, like Shankar talked about, what are the different types of people and what they do, just for your reference. But this is a pretty common one. So the summary is, I think it's an enterprise problem, cyber attacks. It's a reputation problem. We talked about it, and it's a global problem. Thank you very much.